Hey, Will King here from My Cotton Homes, and today I'm in the studio and I want to take a look at the cost difference between regular roof decks versus sealed roof decks. And so, that's a common question I get all the time as a builder is what's the cost difference between using something like zip system versus regular OSB? If I had a nickel for every time I've been asked that question, I would probably retire. So I thought it would be a good time to just sit down and go over the cost difference and specifically the roof assembly and show you what that looks like and then talk through some of the benefits of using a sealed roof deck versus a non-sealed. And even though there's a cost difference, why you should still consider using it. So I think to start with, and the thing that everybody wants to know is the math. So let's look at that first. So to do this, I took numbers as of yesterday of lumber pricing. So, and this is local right here in Florence, Alabama, just so everybody knows watching this video. It's obviously going to vary depending on what market you're in and who you're buying your lumber from. But I would be willing to bet that the difference, the average difference, is probably going to be pretty close to the same across the country. So commodity OSB, let's start there. So 7/16 OSB, it's about $13.50 a sheet right now. And 5/8 OSB is about $18.62. And for this video, we're going to do both. We're going to look at a 7/16 roof and also a 5/8 roof. And typically we are doing 5/8 roof decks because we do use a lot of truss roofs on 2-foot centers. So 7/16 $13.50, 5/8 $18.62. And then we look at our zip system, and that's about $23.29 a sheet for 7/16. And for 5/8 about $31.19. So that's the cost of the panels themselves. You also have to look at the cost of the synthetic roofing felt versus tape, because when you use one, you don't use the other, right? So probably one of the most common synthetic felts that I've seen is GAF's Felt Buster. So the cost of that was like $98.98 a roll. That's 1,000 square feet of coverage. And then 4-inch zip tape, 90-foot rolls. That's like $28.99 per roll is what we're currently buying that for. So let's take the average. Let's take an average house. This just so happens to be one that we're building, so I was able to pull some numbers from that project. But it's about 5,400 square feet of roof decking. All right. So if you use a little bit of waste factor there, that puts us at 185 panels, 4x8 sheets of OSB. All right, so on a 7/16 roof, let's start there. 185 panels, $13.50. That's $24.97 in material costs for OSB. And if we went to zip, it would be $4,308. So then so you can see the difference, and then you add the synthetic felt cost to the regular panel, the regular roof. All right, that's about $593. That's 6 rolls. So that's the cost of that. And then our zip tape is about $753 for 26 rolls. Let me point out right there too, that's using the math of 7 panels of coverage per 1 roll of tape. That's typically how we figure it. So let's look at the actual numbers here of the total. So regular roof deck with regular OSB plus synthetic felts, $3,090.88. A zip system 7/16 roof is a total of plus the tape is $5,062. That's about $1,971 difference in those two, which is about a 63% increase in cost to go from a regular unsealed roof deck to something like zip system roof deck. So a sealed roof deck. It's about 63%. And honestly, the 5/8 numbers are very similar at the end of this. So the panels cost more, of course, on both sides. So we'll just go into the regular decking, which if you used 185 sheets of 5/8 commodity OSB plus synthetic felt, it's about $4,038.55 versus the 5/8 zip panel plus tape. It puts you at $6,523. So that difference is about $2,485.34 or 61%. So with 7/16 we're 63%, and with 5/8 we're 61%. So I would be willing to say that if you bet on somewhere between 60 and 65%, you're probably going to be pretty covered. And by saying the cost difference between those two. All right, so that's the cost. And yes, it is more expensive. And all the people that have asked me questions about that, they were assuming that it costs more, and they are correct. But why do we do it? So why as a builder, why do I invest in a product like that and a system like that on a build like what we do for our custom homes? So I think to start with, during construction, it's a huge help. So, the framing times on some of these custom homes can be anywhere from 6, 10, 12 weeks long, and some even larger and longer, depending on how big the house is. But the have the ability to be in the dry from the day your framer gets done is huge. I remember building without a sealed roof deck, and just the pains and the rush to get that roof on because of the amount of water intrusion we had. And so as time went on and we swapped over, it was amazing how much more time you had on the inside to stay dry. Because when your framers leave, obviously that's accomplished. And even talking about long-term moisture content in a house, if you can stop the rain from coming in, you can start drying out all of the framing package, which I think is a really big deal for the long-term success of the project. And then, especially if you get in like metal roofing or specialty roofing, it's not like you can just call a roofer and they come slap on shingles. Those things take time. And in a recent project I had, I was able to get all our mechanicals in, insulation done, drywall, and even trim before our metal roof was able to be put on that project. And so if I had to look at the time that I would have lost on a project had I not had a sealed roof deck, it'd have been a big deal. In fact, it would have probably made that project a total disaster, to be honest with you. So, is that project, is that benefit alone worth a 61% cost increase, or let's just say $2,000 to $3,000? Absolutely, it is. That let us build their house about 3 months faster than we would have otherwise because we were having to wait on a product like the roof. So that's one benefit, is just being in the dry faster during construction. But probably the second largest benefit that I'll tell you about is the ability to withstand water in the event of severe weather. There's a program out there called Fortified, and they have developed a set of standards in roof systems and actually into your home too for other levels of Fortified. But if you look at that research, it'll tell you. So in the event of severe weather, okay, let's say tornadoes, we're talking about hurricanes, tornadoes, severe wind events. If you lose a section of your roof decking, or not decking, I'm sorry, roof covering. So let's say big section of your shingles blew off in a tornado. Okay, and then let's say huge rains come that night and even the next day. Just by having that sealed roof deck underneath your roof covering, you're talking about preventing up to 95% of water intrusion into your house. That's significant, and that's just because where those panels come together, it's taped. That's the biggest difference there when you talk about preventing that kind of water intrusion. A good friend of ours, Steve Basic, talks about all the time that water is the number one killer of buildings. And I absolutely agree. And not only long term, but also in the short term, too. I know from the fire service when we were putting out house fires, if the fire and the smoke didn't ruin your house, the water probably was. Because remember, we were dragging in hose lines and putting, 500 gallons or 250 gallons per minute into your house. And it doesn't take long to have a ton of damage from that kind of water. So being able to give your customer peace of mind in the event of severe weather with that sealed roof deck, to me, it's worth way more than the difference that we're talking about right here on this paper. And some other benefits of doing something like zip system versus regular OSB and felt is our framers prefer it. Our framers prefer dealing with that on the roof versus having to fight with the rolls of synthetic roofing felt, And then it eliminates the question of like, well, who does the felt? Does my framer do the felt or do my roofers do the felt? Because sometimes my experience, framers weren't that great at doing felt. And then you're bringing out another sub to get your house in the dry by the roofer coming out and putting down felt. So that alone has been a big help as well. And I would argue that it's safer to walk on. I think that a solid product like that, without a loose paper or a loose synthetic felt, it does make for a safer working environment, in my opinion. And by talking, and my framers agree with me by talking to them. So I think those are big benefits too. All right, so to wrap this up, yes, a sealed roof deck costs more. We've determined that. We've shown the math. And is it worth it? Absolutely. In my professional opinion, I think that it is absolutely worth investing in a sealed roof deck versus a regular roof deck when you're building your house. All right, so hopefully this answered some of the questions that we get asked all the time about the cost difference between a product like Zip versus regular OSB, and specifically on the roof. If you're not already following us on Instagram, go find us and follow along for more content. It's at Will King Builds. And just remember, iron sharpens iron, so keep grinding, keep watching these videos, and we'll see you right here on The Build Show.